Welcome, everyone, to our first episode in 2025 of CRE Unplugged. I'm your co-host, Nadine Ezzi, and I am here with my incredible co-host, Ryan Elazari. Ryan, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025.
2025. We are officially in the future. Man, I cannot believe it. Wow. A new year, a new episode of CRE Unplugged. I can't believe we're still on air. This is amazing. Let's just keep doing it until we can't do it anymore.
Until someone in the Apollo takes us by the handle.
Exactly.
And
yeah, exactly. Just kind of yanks us
still
off
going.
stage.
Yeah.
I love the beginning of a new year. I don't know about you. I don't know. It just feels like a clean slate, even though really we can start over every single day. But I just love the energy at the beginning of a new year. How do you feel about it?
I'm not a big, new year, have to change your perspective type of person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really do New Year's resolutions.
Really? That
I'm
was
not
my next
a
question to
person.
you. Yeah.
I know. I'm more of just being able to be aware of things that I need to work on and
Yeah.
improve on. And but a couple of things that I did do towards the end of 2024 was yin yoga, which has
Yeah.
definitely helped me become more focused, but also helped me with my body. I was having a lot of back issues, and
Yeah.
I have to say, yin yoga has definitely improved that for me, and it's
Yeah.
made like a big difference in my life.
Good for you. You're such an inspiration to me when it comes to wellness. You really are. Yeah, I used to keep fit in the last couple of years since I started my own business. It's like if I eat in a day and it's not trash food, that's like a win for me. No, I like that perspective though, kind of just taking into the new year things, maybe continuing things that were already working. So I know for me, I don't do resolutions either, right? Like if I recognize there's just something that needs to improve, I just start working on it. I don't wait for a new year or anything like that. One thing that was really good for me in 2024 that I definitely want to take into the new year was I kind of redefined my definition of what success meant. And I got to tell you, that was such a game changer for me mentally. Before just being a lawyer and working in our industry, it's really hard not to define success by like how much money we make and our title and climbing the ladder and all that kind of stuff. And I really have had to rework that definition since going out on my own. And so that's really just alleviated a lot of pressure on me and just made me a happier, more present person. I want to keep doing that in 2025, right? And gratitude has a lot to do with that. I used to hate when people told me, just be grateful for what you have. I'm like, shut up. But it really helps. It really does help be present. So yeah, I'm just going to keep focusing on that. And then I'm going to take a page out of your book and really focus on physical wellness this year. Not just because I feel like I need to look better, but you just want to feel your best. So, and now that I'm north of 40, it matters. So
I think you're hard on yourself. You look great, and
thank you.
for
Thank you.
one advice I could give you is my great aunt. She's very smart, and she always used to always say to me, "Focus on your body because your body then helps your mind.
Yeah.
Focus on your mind because then it helps your body." So
Yeah.
you're doing the right things, Nadine.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, one thing I do have to say is Gary Vee talks about this. I know I'm quoting a lot of people
Oh, I
here.
love this. Bring in the
He's like,
wisdom.
yeah, don't focus on other people and what they're doing and not try to compare yourself. And I think that's what a lot of people do on a consistent basis. And it's just not healthy.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, social media certainly doesn't help, especially when there's so many people putting themselves out there as like experts and do this and don't do that. I can't agree with you more. I must ask you, Ryan, in our industry, right, and everything that we talk about, do you have any predictions for 2025?
I do. I have to say, AI, cloud computing, the digital economy, I think it's going to drive crazy growth in the data center market. You hear Blackstone and Related and all the other major players talking about how it's the top asset class right now in the
Yep.
industry.
Yeah.
And what that means is there's going to be extraordinarily demand for power. And it's going to strain the grid, which I think is going to have a major effect on development. And you're going to start seeing how the nuclear power is going to play such a big role with that. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out in 2025. What about you?
Yeah, the power is a big one, especially with regards to the data centers. We're already seeing, certain partnerships when it's come to nuclear energy, announced in 2024. So I think we're going to see more of that in 25. For me in 2025, I mean, we can't get away from artificial intelligence is everywhere. For me, I think 2024 was a lot of theoretical discussion of artificial intelligence. What are its use cases for our industry? What are the risks, et cetera? A lot of the conversations I've had with people at the end of 24, I think we're going to see people move more and more towards actual application of it. Start to pilot it, start to think of those use cases, start to prepare their organizations, whether that's a cultural shift or a mindset shift or just starting with little wins here and there. I think we're going to see that more on a more widespread scale this year. And you know what I think we're going to see, and I think we're going to see more of it, is I think our industry is going to embrace messiness a little bit, the messy middle. And what I mean by that is nobody really has the answers right now, right? We were discussing with past guests that, money has become or was historically pretty cheap to get. And so you had all these investors getting money, buying assets. And not that it was, easy, but it was just easier for people to enter into the market and operate assets and things like that. And now it's become challenging. Return to work, workplace strategy, I think is going nowhere, is not going to go anywhere. I think we're going to keep having to hear these conversations, thankfully, about people trying to figure out what is that answer? What is that optimal answer for getting people in the office? What's the optimal culture for them to work? What does work mean? And what I'm excited about that. I mean, we're hearing people even say we should redefine the words that we use, right? Should we even call it an office anymore? Anna Squire Levine, our last guest, even, said that that term is a bit clinical. So I'm excited. And I think that we're going to see just an embrace of this messy unknown. And people are going to have an opportunity to test things out, have some theories, and figure things out where in an industry we haven't always welcomed change or experimentation as much. So I think those two things we're going to see a lot of in 2025.
Well said. And would love to talk more about the AI front. According to the Center for Real Estate and Technology Innovation, artificial intelligence and automation attracted $3.2 billion in VC funding. And you and I have spoken in a few panels regarding the advancement of artificial intelligence. And
Yeah.
we had so many professionals come to us and they were curious about learning more about the application of the platforms that you spoke about before. And I don't even think we scratched the surface yet. I think
No.
there's so much there. And I really can't wait to see where we're headed on that front. So 2025, it's going to be very exciting.
Bring it, bring it. Speaking of forecasting, we have a very interesting guest today, and why it is that we felt it was important and interesting for us to talk to this guest today. We're thrilled to welcome the Managing Director of Research and Analytics at Link Logistics. This role is one of those hidden powerhouses in our industry, driving decisions, shaping strategies, and revealing trends that impact every aspect of commercial real estate.
Absolutely, Nadine. Research and analytics have become essential to staying competitive in the commercial real estate space. We're operating in a world where change is constant, whether it's tenant demands, market fluctuations, or the integrations of new technologies like AI or our Internet of Things.
Hmm.
Without taking those necessary steps,
Hmm.
companies are really risking falling behind. So, research and analytics gives us tools not to just react, but to predict and adapt to this thriving landscape that's becoming more complex day by day.
Exactly. And I have to say, what's really exciting about this area is how it goes beyond just crunching numbers, which I used to think that's what it was. And it's about storytelling. It's about connecting those dots between data points to uncover insights that can drive smarter leasing decisions, guide investments, or identify emerging market opportunities. So, for example, understanding shifts in supply chain, logistics, consumer behavior, or even zoning changes can give real estate professionals the edge that they need to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And with industrial real estate playing such a critical role in today's economy, especially with the e-commerce boom and reshoring trends, our guest expertise is more relevant than ever. So I can't wait to dive in and learn more about how research and analytics will play a big role in the future of real estate. You ready, Nadine?
I'm ready, Ryan.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And with that, I'm elated to introduce Matthew Rand, Managing Director of Research and Analytics at Link Logistics. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Elated sounds like really positive. I appreciate that.
He's setting you up. Don't let him down.
Yeah, I might. We'll
It's
see.
okay. All right.
I don't think so. You seem jazzed up today. I'm excited for this. Nadine and I were just talking about New Year's resolutions. Happy New Year, by the way. Uh,
You as well.
Yeah, we wanted to know, like, what are your New Year's resolutions? Do you have any New Year's resolutions or goals for 2025?
I do. Yeah. I am going to pay attention to deadlines in 2025 and finish things when they're good enough, and then walk away from those things and spend time with the kids, right? So I think there's a lot of times where it's super hard to step away from something when it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's never a bad time to learn that. So well, I mean, I suppose it would have been better earlier, but I very much want to stop doing the whole perfectionism thing. So that's mine. Yeah.
If you figure that one out, you mind giving me a call? I've actually been working on that myself. So yeah, if you can figure that one out, that would be great, Matt.
I haven't yet, but
Yeah.
there's
All
always
right.
there's always this year.
We can be accountability partners.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I like that one a lot. I do. I like that one a lot. I wish you the best of luck with that.
I'm really hoping I'm gonna like completely nail it. I want to really perfect the way from things.
Yeah, you're off to a great start, Matt. So Matt,
Yes.
there's nothing that I love more than a nonlinear career journey. So please don't let me down. All right. Please share your career journey with our listeners and how it is that you got to where you are today at Link Logistics.
Yeah. It is definitely nonlinear.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm in a role today that I wouldn't have foreseen at any earlier point, right? I run our research and analytics group at Link. Our job is to see around the corner, kind of what's changing in industrial real estate, what's coming that we need to be aware of, what should we be talking about with Blackstone about, hey, this trend is happening and we'd better get around it, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure 5 years from now we've got the right portfolio for our customers, versus now. And we think we've got a pretty good portfolio now, but the world could change, and we want to make sure we stay relevant. That is not something I ever trained for or expected to do. So I've been at Link for just under 4 years now, and I came here from the investment side in the public market. So I was running a REIT portfolio most recently at Citadel for a couple of years. I was at JP Morgan Asset Management before that, investing in REITs. That was, I mean, it was a ton of fun, and you really get in deep into a lot of companies, but only as deep as you can get from the outside. And ultimately, the more I would talk to management teams, the more I saw, hey, this is happening and this is happening, and how are you positioning around that, and how do you add value? Those conversations were not necessarily what would drive the stock day to day. It certainly would over the long term. But those conversations were the most interesting ones. So,
Mm.
I had an opportunity where I knew some folks from the management team here, and had a mentor who was kind enough to kind of talk to me about what it would be like at Link and why he came here. And it started to dawn on me as uh, the somebody who invested a little bit, knew Excel, I could write, and spent time trying to teach myself how to code, that there was a real thing to do here in terms of the data we have around industrial.
Mm.
It's just rounding the corner, right? Multifamily was there years ago, hotels years ago. Um, there are a lot of buildings. The customers of those buildings are trying to solve their own optimization problems, locate where they can reach more of their end customers faster and more cheaply and more efficiently. Um, and if you can kind of figure out how they're trying to solve it and take enough data, you can figure out what are good locations, for one use, what are good locations for another use. And that there's so much fun stuff you can do there at scale. And there's not many companies who are at that scale to do it. So it was like, okay, let's do this. Nobody, has fully built this before. But then to even be in that position, where I'm having that conversation, well, I'd been, investing in REITs for a while, and I had that mentor who I met, in the public markets. And
Hmm.
why was I coding and why was I investing? It's like that's nonlinear too, right? So I now go right back to the beginning. I graduated college. I had no concept of what I wanted to do. I was trying to be a writer. I worked for a comedian. I was mainly buying carrots for her dog. And then I would, write these little music stories for kind of small publications. And then I'd gone to my undergrad was business school, and so I thought, okay, I'm I know a little bit about this, and like a friend was, working at Forbes, the publication, and sort of got me into like a couple of small freelance assignments, and little by little, then I'm working there. Coincidentally, met my wife there too when we were both journalists. She's now also in finance, but um, that experience, which I did for 4 years, taught me a lot about checking facts, seeing what
Mm.
people tell you versus what they want to tell you. It
Hmm.
was not the great American novel that some younger version of me might have imagined writing, but then never could finish the deadlines on. The That ultimately led to an analyst at Bear Stearns who is still now a friend, and he has me visit his class at Columbia once a year. Now, somebody had told him in his career early on, if you hire journalists as analysts, so this was a sell side analyst covering REITs. If you hire journalists, they'll turn around notes really fast.
Mm.
And I don't know if I did that, but he hired me, and so I basically, once I was there, and then the financial crisis hit, I was like, these people think I'm just a writer and I don't know anything else, and everybody's losing jobs left and right, and I'm gonna work harder, right? I'm gonna be there as much as I have to because I don't know how to make my rent otherwise. I don't, I'm
Yeah.
not going back to journalism. That doesn't, and so that period was intense, but you learned so much from seeing
Hmm.
all these companies on the brink and then back.
Hmm.
So that sell side career ultimately led to the buy side job, which then led to the whole part I already told you about. None of it was planned. Like it was, it
Yeah.
was all kind of winding.
Yeah. You know what I really like about what you just did? You just connected this transferability of your skill set from journalism to what it is that you're doing today with data analytics. And for those that don't know much about data analytics, which is something that I'm just starting to scratch the surface with myself, it's not just about the data, right? It's about telling a story with it. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes.
Right, right. So for those listening that are tired of buying carrots for their comedian boss's dog and want to make a pivot, into the world of data, it is all not lost on you. Matt did it, and you can too.
That's a good pitch. Yeah. I wasn't good at buying the carrots. She just yelled at me so much because I got the wrong kind, even though the dog liked them better.
I feel like that's a stand-up bit in and of itself, Matt.
It was potentially that's a different podcast. But
That's
yeah,
a different podcast we should
We'll
do.
have to revisit that another time.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for that, Matt.
sure.
Given the size of Link Logistics, you guys are a decent size organization. I suspect that building your own tech and data solutions is more feasible than for smaller firms. So, with that being said, ability isn't the only factor to take into consideration. How does Link decide whether to build versus buy, and what best practices does it employ in doing so?
So it's thanks, Nadine. It's a really important question. So I'm glad you asked it because it's one of the things we debate a lot internally. It's an area where we're, not always obvious which way to go. So if you think about it on a spectrum of, what is our core competency and what is not, so what are we really good at and what are we not good at? And then what exists in the marketplace and what doesn't. So if something is really a core competency, we think this is the thing we know how to do better than anybody, and the product doesn't exist or the service doesn't exist in the marketplace, easy. We should build it. If it is something we're not good at all, and it's a commodity product in the marketplace, easy. We should buy it. And then obviously economics come into play around, well, how much value will this add for us? And what will it cost to do each of those, right? So not just strategically, are we good at it and should we spend our time, but is building versus buying going to cost something different, in any substantial way? And should we do any of it at all, right? And so that that gray area between something we're obviously good at and something we're not good at, and between something that is definitely just on the shelf product and not, is where you start to see, well, how is this going to interact with the rest of our tech stack, and what are the other potential uses we might get to, and how secure is the provider? There's so many things that come into play that when you're at one of the extremes, you don't even have to worry about because it's obvious, but it's usually not.
And honestly, what a great decision framework really for any sized organization as to whether they're going to do something or outsource it, if you really think about it. And so I feel like sometimes I don't want to oversimplify it by saying that people overthink it, but the framework that you just provided was so sensical. And I think it could, while it's not always so black and white and there's a lot of gray area, it does make a lot of sense for people to employ that when trying to make that decision.
Great.
Matt, I'm guessing that Link Logistics sits on a ton of data. And Nadine and I were just talking about how AI is going to make such a big impact in 2025. I think it's really going to change the landscape of the real estate industry. I would love to know your team, how are they leveraging that data? And are you going to use AI and other tech to help further that focus?
Yeah. So yes, we are. Although it depends how you define AI, but yeah, it's. I agree. It's going to be a huge year for this. The advancement you're seeing on these things is so rapid. I mean, some of it's pretty clunky still, and some of it is amazing, right? That can happen in this, the same conversation with one of these large language models where you're both blown away by how impressive it is, and then you think, how did you make that mistake? It's the way people are talking about AI, or what they refer to when they talk about AI right now, is generally these large language models and associated models, or kind of image recognition that's also built on these kind of deep learning neural nets. And we aren't building those because we would need a few more data centers and a lot of chips. So that's not a thing that we're going to make, but we absolutely can leverage them for different purposes. I would say the core of my team's work is not that. It's, if you're using the broader term of AI, that's anything to include machine learning, et cetera, then yes. And what we're doing there, and it's really the heart of our work, is essentially trying to build the kinds of tools I had available to me in the public markets using private market data, right? So it's, what would I use to make a decision before, when there was data everywhere and you had, the latest tick of every stock and you knew everything about every company? What if we had that level of data in the private market? How would we use it? How would we build it? And obviously, we're not there yet. There's a lot of work yet to go, but it's essentially taking a decision framework, a set of micro data, and then building that up to say, okay, if we know a lot about what kinds of spaces customers are leasing in a market, so we know, wow, they're all signing leases of one size or another size, or we know what they are solving for, then we can start to figure out, okay, now we see that, we see these other transactions, we see where you are placing more value than the market. If you're one customer industry, and where you're placing more, where another one's placing more value, and so forth. And you can start to think about, great, how has the value of clear height changed over time? Or, is a dock door worth more in a higher throughput environment than in a lower throughput environment? And if we're moving in that direction, does that mean that they become more valuable? That's the kind of thing we can use a heap of data to test and say, we've seen all these transactions, we think we know, and we can go from there. And that is what we get a huge assist from data and machine learning for, because we can build all of that up to, essentially, we talked about telling stories with data. You build it up to a very clear level where it says, aha, here's this thing that I can see. I can see the value of a dock door has increased. That the industry is taking for granted that clear height's very valuable, but in XYZ market, it's not, right? And so those are the most fun, right? It's like when you can, because like when you do a lot of work and you prove something that people out in the field are like, yeah, I know, that's not fun. It's better than getting it wrong, but the best is when you can say, aha, I see something that this pattern is not obvious to people in the field yet, but it makes sense when they think about it. And then they start to see it and it's, oh, that's real. If we're getting it right, we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the large language models will be for, if that helps with any kinds of, needle in the haystack problems of like, hey, look at all of this and tell me a summary of, this piece, or like, yeah, what did, like, which are the, like most glaring, utility reimbursement issues that we've had, right? And that, and you can give it any criteria and it'll return that for you. And a lot of those uses are kind of efficiency oriented, whereas the other piece that we're working on is more about, do we actually change the way we make decisions and the way we understand our industry? And that's where I've tried to focus most of our team's effort.
Matt, does your team get into actual implementation of solutions? Like, we talk a lot about on this podcast about best practices and whatnot around that and the convert, in the thought process of, not trying to switch everything over completely and running analog versus digital in parallel. How deep into that does your team get and what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, a good, good hard. It's that's a it's a hard question to answer, and I say that because where the business starts and stops, where the figuring things out starts and stops, and where the productionizing of it starts and it's
Mhm.
all a kind of a blend. So I have been at the company for almost 4 years. I would say within the first 6 months, we had stood up a like a basic model of here's how we think rents work. It
Mhm.
was okay, uh,
Yeah.
but it was a model, and it was better than not having one. And
Mhm.
it helped us see,
Right.
what was happening during a time where things were changing very quickly,
Mhm.
and the implication of one set of changes on another set of changes was really important. Um, it's been another 3.5 years, and we're still figuring out production, right? So it's like that part is actually really, really hard.
Mhm.
If in a way, I was lucky and we were lucky that we started out with the business problem is like, the there that I saw from my last job when I went over to do this was there's something we can do to figure out better and faster, what to buy in a market that's less efficient.
Mhm.
And um, that's driven everything. If we had started instead with let's staff a team and start building models, and we're going to see if we can be useful for you, I think that the machinery of kind of building and waiting and trying to productionize things would have really gotten in the way. And we'd have probably been pushed out by now because production is hard, right? You have to like things have to not break for any reason, right? And
Yes.
and then that says nothing of how does it then interact back with the business, right? So there's a production of the actual tech stack and how do the models flow, and then you've got this pipeline that works and deposits these this data here, and then that feeds back in this way, and here's how you use it all. And then there's how does the company as an organism use all of this, right?
Mhm.
And what is that process? And that is I've seen it work in the investment world where you can use data to get a little bit smarter, a little bit faster, but you know that you still need to use your judgment on top of that. And because I've seen it and I've seen industries that do it, I sometimes take for granted that knowing what that looks like is obvious to everybody. And I don't mean it's not a special skill. It's just I worked in an environment where people do that, so I've seen it done. I've seen it be the standard, and it's really hard, I think, to go to people who have been in the analog world and say, okay, we're going to give you this thing,
Mhm.
not telling you what to do. Like we're trying to pre-chew it. It's like here's the like there's going to be error. You should live in the residual space. You
Mhm.
know your market better. Like you know
Mhm.
everything better. There's going to be stuff we missed. We can't build this as complex as the actual world. So how do we give you enough information that it actually just saved you time figuring out, that this or that was happening in the market, and then you can take the next part, like the part where you're really an expert, at how are the different customers who are in the market behaving, and what do they want? What are the really unique attributes that there's no way we're going to see about an asset? Like what are they, and how will that feed into all of this? I think there's just a lot of effort you have to put in on a very regular basis of kind of reminding them like you know best. And you have been in this industry for a long time, and we totally respect you in that regard, and we're trying to help you and give you a tool that makes it a little easier to do your job, which is not always the way people assume that you are coming at them when you say, "Here's a giant like pile of numbers. What do you think?" And so it was like you got to put a lot of effort into that. So that's the like non-tech side of production. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, change management is hard. I've definitely experienced it with my property managers and our engineers. So I'm definitely with you there. Other than trying to have them like focus and have them look at the end goal, like, do you have any other best practices that you can share with our listeners?
I was hoping you would I was hoping you had them. We're still figuring it out. Uh, I think it's a lot of that. Um, if you can get people to a point where they can view something undefensively or
Mm,
non-defensively,
so,
what is the word? One of those not defensively.
Right.
And so the like once somebody's viewing things that way, um, then they're, I think, open to helping and adjusting and seeing that something can help. And the way to get there is, I think, really to and it's a needle you have to thread. It's a combination of we respect you, like you're an expert, and we can help, right? And so, where that's threading a needle is it's very easy to go down the we respect you, you're an expert, and here's this garbage data that like you're an expert and this stuff's not, like you know, you are threatened by it or you don't like it or you don't trust the approach. And so you look and you see a number that's wrong and you say, I don't care. And the other side is, hey, look, we back tested XYZ and we think we can do this better. So here we can help you,
hmm
but without the respect part of it, and then nobody wants that either. So you really need to partner with local teams to get to that point where they want it to work for them. They want you to be better at it so that you can then help them. And where we've had some of those partnerships be really successful was, talking through, hey, like on this set, like these are the ones that you flagged as being really weird. Like, let's talk through that. What do they have in common? Oh wow, like in one example, I remember it was just this was very early. It was like, wow, they all have a lot of office. How about we, how about we reflect that, right? Like that was a very early stumble. But then, it gets a lot more nuanced. It's, hey, this is the same kind of, level of population density and unit size and office fit out as this other set of properties, but the crime rate in this neighborhood is very different from the crime rate in this
mm,
neighborhood. And at this size, unit, you have people who are, leaving work themselves. It's like it's mom and pop businesses. They're going home in the parking lot at night, and so they don't want to be there if they feel there's more crime. So that wouldn't, I mean, you can try to like data mine everything, but sometimes you have to actually understand the why. And if you don't have that partnership, like you can't get that feedback to you. So it's so delicate to say this is good enough that it's useful, but not like, but it's not about being better or worse or replacing. It's like this is just here to help you. Like it's a harder thing to live with these. It sounds like you probably lived that part, Ryan.
Oh, I've been there, and I definitely agree with you. You got to take that kinder, holding their hand approach. We also do a lot of incentives into getting people to buy in to new technology. But again, it's not easy, man. I agree with you. You gotta handle it with tender, loving care, and hope that soon you'll have that come to Jesus moment where everyone understands what you're trying to preach and that they'll make their lives easier and you guys can get to the common goal.
I think you hit a very poignant part where you said the why, right? Explaining the why. I think there's even a Simon Sinek book called Start with Why. But and I think that's all about the expectation setting, right? It's much more than just, hey, here's some new technology, you got to start using it. That expectation setting and explaining to the end users or the stakeholders, like, here's why we're doing this. Here's why we think this can help you. Here's why we would like your feedback. I mean, it is a lot. And yeah, change management is no joke, but I would even say it's more critical than the development of the technology itself. So anyway, that
I
being
think you got to get Nadine to come to your office one day and help you out. Because what she's
I've done
saying is
this a
so on
little
point.
bit. Yeah.
That's talent. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Just phone a friend,
yeah,
just
exactly.
call her up. She'll dive right in.
Yeah, we could use you on some of these
Well,
presentations.
I did onboarding and customer success for a prop tech company, and we got to know our customers so well that we would even sometimes create new personas based on some of them. We were like, oh, we didn't think of that. We're creating an entirely new persona based on that. So I've lived it. I've definitely lived it. But once you start getting those wins, and your whether it's your coworkers, Matt, or whomever it is, your end users, your stakeholders start to experience that momentum of those wins, and then they come to you and they're like, I never want to do it the old way again. It's so worth it. It's not easy, but man, is it worth it. Man, is it worth it. But another thing that I've experienced and seen repeatedly throughout our industry, and I wonder if you have as well, Matt, is the struggle that ensues from the communication gap that exists between the subject matter experts, the ones that you talked about that know their stuff, the industry experts, and the technology and the data scientist side, right? Yeah. Specifically, that a lot is lost in translation between the two. What's your take on that? Have you experienced it? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's funny, right? The skill set that makes you a good data scientist, not always the same skill set that makes it easy to talk to people. And in a way, I'm really lucky that I came through the direction I came through, which is fortunately, I have a team of really strong data scientists, but I am a mediocre data scientist. And I think I know real estate and how to decide whether to buy or sell something or how to make a forecast pretty well, because that's most of my career. And so that side of things and being able to connect that back to when we're having these iterations with the business around, hey, here's this or here's this, it's much easier to have that conversation than if it was, hi, I have a bunch of tools at my disposal, and I heard you have a problem. What is your problem? Right. So it's like I think that's really a tougher conversation to have. And so if you kind of start with the North Star of here's actually what we're trying to do, and the thing that we're trying to do, the end goal is either identical to your end goal in the business or makes intuitive sense and you're willing to be along for the ride, then I think you can bridge a lot of gaps around communication style and et cetera. I think otherwise, those things which can, there's often kind of inadvertent stumbles that people will have when communicating, especially, those of us who spend a lot of hours, in front of a screen coding, like that can. I'm trying to move away from coding for the most part, but I can always tell on a day that I've been coding a lot, I forget how to talk to people. Like it's like those are the days that, like, if somebody has a question for me, I'm like just not there for it, or I take it super literally and like fine point, as opposed to thinking about the big picture. If I don't open the code at all for a day, I'm not that, right? It's like it's very dependent, and so I can kind of empathize with when that is your life. And then suddenly somebody at the business is like asking a question that to them is very intuitive and to you doesn't exactly foot to the way you've structured something. And you're kind of stuck in the, this giant nest of logic of the thing you've structured. that's a hard conversation. And so like I definitely have those from time to time. And you can get in your own way a little bit, especially then, like where I can then go is, why do we have to have this conversation? Like we're doing the thing, right? Don't you see, right? And that can be not productive, right? And so I would say that's the thing I struggle with the most, is that sometimes I just don't allocate the time to saying, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to see where this person is, like what they're experiencing, what they're trying to get out of this, and how we can do that most effectively and help them, as opposed to, wait, what? You have a question? Like, and then, suddenly like, minimize a bunch of other windows. And it's like, okay, I'm here for your question, right? That's not the best way to approach a conversation.
You're very self-aware, Matt.
It's only through failure. Like,
Life lessons with Matthew Ryan.
Yeah, I want to continue with some more life lessons because Matt, I feel like you and I were becoming fast friends. I think we can go deep with my next question.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Is there anything is there anything personally that you struggle with? For example, in our industry, imposter syndrome is like a common challenge that people face. Is there something that you've experienced that's similar? And if so, like how do you overcome it or navigate it?
Yeah. Ooh.
This is the Brene Brown version of CRE Unplugged.
Yeah. No, I feel like if we did this every week, I would be like a much more enlightened and self-aware person. So
That's what we try to do.
yeah, I think the imposter syndrome is real, and there's always layers of it, and that's one where I can say, agent experience kind of helps push through. Once you have enough moments of I don't think I'm ready for this, and then you do the thing, like, okay, I've got this. Like you can kind of get comfortable being outside of your, what where you think you are. I think where I get stuck, and it's kind of related to that, is, and I observed this most when I was, in my last two jobs, the 8 years I spent buying and selling REITs, because it is really easy to see in the market, but you have your views, you have your theses, you think that, this is going to happen or this is going to happen, whether it's something macro or something very specific to a company, or even something of, at some meta level, like, well, I think the company is going to do this, but I think everybody else thinks it's going to do this. And so, that sort of thing. And when you are wrong, and it's not easy to define what wrong is, because time periods are different, and you can definitely buy something, it goes down, or et cetera, and give it time, and you will make more money than you lost it. That's simply volatility. But when you're legitimately wrong, like you had a thesis, you bought something, or you sold it, short, the thing you are expecting that will make you right doesn't happen, or things go another way, and then you start to think, well, this is a mean reverting sector. It's gone too far the other way. That's frustrating. I'm just going to add to this bet, because usually, like, when things mean revert and they've gone wrong, if you grow your bet, you make more money. And so it's this like cognitive dissonance place where you don't want to accept it, and you're just like, well, I'm just going to keep adding to it because the market's wrong, right? Like that is bad, right? Don't do that. Kids at home, if you're investing in the stock market, when you are wrong, like don't just exit. I'll say that was something that I learned really well at Citadel, because it was such a great environment for, hey, it's not about pride. You're wrong. Done. Cut it. Let's it's the other way, actually. Like, okay, it's not something to feel anything about. It's just something to react to and change and and fix the portfolio. And where that comes into play now is we're looking on a time scale where it's not obvious for a while whether you're going to be right or wrong about something. Or if you're kind of right about one element of it, but you're wrong about another element of it, or you're right relatively, but you're wrong absolutely, or vice versa. It's really hard to look at all of that and say, okay, obviously here, I'm going to change this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. At the same time as I think that the traditional side of the industry looks at, more quantitative approaches and says, like, what are you even doing? Like I walked the dirt. Like I saw this, right? Like this is a good deal. Or there's only 5 buildings I could buy in this market this year. So what? Of course I'm going to buy this one. Or of course I'm, et cetera. And that moment where you're like, am I right? Does this work? Right? That is like my version now of an imposter thing of I'm constantly on the lookout for, is that cognitive dissonance there? Am I feeling that feeling that I should know better, I should just change the bet? Or is it just, this is maybe unfamiliar territory or more nuanced in a different way, and I just have to learn how that works, right? So that's a tough moment to like tell the difference between the two, between being, wrong and okay, let's just switch it, or actually I'm right and I just didn't realize it because somebody convincingly told me I wasn't. That's my version of the imposter syndrome.
I've learned so much from Matt already. Like you're my Yoda.
That's deep.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No, I really appreciated that as well. Truly, honestly, because a couple of things. Commercial real estate industry is not always an industry that prides itself on encouraging the making of mistakes and learning from them, especially publicly, right? And so, and that is spread to so many different roles within the industry, right? Myself being an attorney in the industry, learning to just find that space in which to kind of iterate and learn has been wildly difficult. So I really appreciated your.
It's funny. I think so we've had 40 years of interest rates going down, and if you just bought buildings and borrowed money against them and then sold those buildings at a later date, like you did pretty well. And so there's been a great luxury of not having to learn those lessons in this industry, which is not to denigrate their skill. They may be very well skilled, but that feedback loop doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And it's a really helpful feedback loop because you stop having your pride and ego tied up in it. You just try to react.
I couldn't agree more with you. I couldn't. So Matt, before we wrap this up today, this is something that this next question is something that I like to talk about a lot with people when I meet them, because for me personally, the definition has changed a lot over the course of my career. So I'd like to hear what you have to say. How do you personally measure success in an industry where metrics can often seem purely financial?
I'm going to overcomplicate this one for you, but I think I probably don't have to. I think the simple answer is, for me personally, success is, can I do something more interesting tomorrow than I did today? Like every day. Like I feel like I've followed stuff that's interesting to me, like throughout, right? Which is maybe a low tolerance for doing stuff I wasn't as interested in, or however you want to explain it. But I think I just keep migrating to like, okay, that's cool. I feel like I got that. I kind of understand what I would do in that job. Now I want, like, this other part's really intriguing. Like, what is that like? And then you just kind of keep going with it. And fortunately, I've been able to remain employed while pursuing that strategy of following interesting things. But I think also the complication I would add is, one thing I didn't really appreciate this before I had a team, because I was always in these smaller kind of individual contributor roles, but I think it's, I've had people along the way who are super helpful at helping me kind of, learn the industry. And they're like, oh, you have a non-traditional background, but I'm still going to spend time with you and show you how this works, et cetera, is can I help my team get to a place where they are further along in whatever their sense of success is? And can we build something that actually works and outlasts us? Like there's a little bit of that kind of thing mixed in, but honestly, it's probably just trying to stay interested in my work.
I think that's great. I love that.
Before we let you go, Matt, love to know, what legacy do you hope to leave behind in the real estate?
Just an enormous amount of money.
All right. That was a great answer. Good night.
I think I would like to get the industry to a place where something I do has some small contribution on changing how we make decisions, right? Can we get to where things are more data driven? People are willing to debate each other without taking it personally. Like we all just kind of like look at the numbers and figure out what we think, and we figure out the narratives, and everybody's like, done, let's go with this, or let's not. And making that systematized enough that it's not just, okay, our company can do it, or this place can do it, but there's now people out there who've experienced this, and wow, like it's probably better to just be thoughtful about decisions and data driven and all of that, which is not to suggest that we're not previously thoughtful or data driven, but I think adding to that process, I would feel almost as happy as the giant pile of money.
Well said, friend. Well said. Matthew Ryan, you've been a wealth of knowledge and information today, and I learned a lot from you. So thank you very, very much for your time and for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Matt, we really appreciate your candor, and we wish you all the best for this new year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Enjoyed the conversation. You elicited the candor with your good questions and very easy rapport. I feel like I've known you both much longer than I have. So
besties.
Well, thank you so much.
Matthew Rand from Link Logistics, thank you again. Be sure to stay tuned for our recap after this word from our sponsor.
Hey there, CRE Unplugged fam. We would like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the Game Changers over at Hilo, the customer experience platform for buildings that's turning heads in the real estate world.
That's right. Can we talk about how Hilo is transforming the way we manage properties and create unforgettable experiences? Ryan, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Hilo?
Well, Nadine, it's all about reducing friction in property management. Hilo is like the magic wand that makes everything seamless and efficient. Say goodbye to those time-consuming tasks and hello to streamlined operations and communications.
Efficiency is crucial, but what about personalized experiences? Hilo takes it to the next level with a vision to tailor each interaction to the needs and preferences of its customers.
And let's not forget the community aspect. Hilo builds vibrant, connected communities. It's fostering a sense of belonging and togetherness.
Now, here's something that truly sets Hilo apart: their commitment to advancing ESG initiatives. They're not just about buildings, they're about making a positive impact on the environment. That's a win-win for everyone.
So, to our listeners out there, if you're ready to elevate your properties, digitize and enhance customer experience, and maximize satisfaction, Hilo is the answer. Please visit hiloapp.com for more information. That's hiloapp.com. Nadine, wow, what a great way to start the new year.
I couldn't agree more. I got to tell you, I love learning something new in the new year, and I took a lot away from Matt's interview today. What about you?
What really struck me was how he was talking about the buy versus build framework.
Yeah.
Use at Link Logistics. At Empire Management, we only buy tech. So we don't have a team of data scientists building proprietary tools in-house. But it's fascinating to see how some firms approach this differently and they create these custom tech solutions to fit their unique needs. So I really thought Matt did a great thing breaking down how to decide whether to build or buy, right? So he talked about how if it's something that they're better than everyone, so he was like talking about the core competencies.
Yes.
And second part was if it doesn't exist in the market, they'll build it, right? So they also look at the economics of each decision carefully. So they have
Mhm.
such a clear and strategic approach to how they look at technology investments and how they could, and it should really be applied across the industry. What about you?
You just took the words right out of my mouth. Even though they're Link Logistics and they're of an extraordinary size and an institutional operation, the best practices and strategies that he offered really could be taken by anybody, right, and applied to their organizations. And I echo your takeaway about the granularity in which he got, right? For me, particularly when we were talking about change management, right? And trying to taking, the data scientists trying to communicate with the subject matter experts and how it really is trial and error. There really is no silver bullet. Are there best practices? 100%. But I really liked Matt's humility, right? And the granularity in which he went into that it's a combination of factors, respect, right? When you're speaking to your subject matter experts, setting expectations, communicating to them like, hey, you might have a problem. I like the way he said this one. I've got a set
Yeah.
of tools that might solve that problem. Let's see if we can work together. But also recognizing that you're talking to a bunch of different stakeholders and what might land and stick with this one person or group or department may not land with this one. And so it's constantly evolving and trial and error. And again, he honed on this a lot, and I really like this. And this kind of ties back to the prediction I gave of 2025 is that I think we're just going to need to embrace trial and error a lot more within our industry. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways and lessons learned from Matt on that one. What about you? Was there anything else that kind of struck lightning with you?
Yeah, I have to talk again about AI. And
Yeah.
we talked about this when we were making our predictions, but it was really interesting how they're adopting AI into their business.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that at Link, they're leveraging the private market data to
Mm-hmm.
develop tools typically seen in only in public markets. So they're taking micro data like clear heights, the number of dock
Mm-hmm.
doors or utility reimbursements, and they're building towards larger, more impactful discoveries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what really stood out to me was how they're using these tools like large language models to tackle that needle in this haystack problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they're uncovering really subtle details within the data, and that can drive really impactful investment decisions. So really good on Link and their whole team there.
Exactly. And again, I think that's another best practice, not necessarily maybe to the extent to which Link is doing it, but again, in a market, in an industry that's not just going to be as cookie cutter as it has been in years past, where people are really going to have to work harder to differentiate themselves and figure out. We're still figuring out what does the market want? Nobody knows. And so really we need to rely on data much, much more to dig deeper, right? And to uncover those little hidden nuggets of stories that might be able to give little glimpses of what it is that the market wants. And for me, somebody who has shied away from data or any mention of data for the majority of her career, always just thinking that it's a spreadsheet, right? That's just telling that story on that spreadsheet in that moment of time. Learning for me that it's a lot more than that, right? It's taking the data to be able to look forward and to detect and extract trends that may not be visible on its face and to be able to kind of peek around the corner. For me, I'm now fascinated by data analytics and I want to learn more about it. And I think anybody out there, now that we are in the age of artificial intelligence, should be more curious and learn more about it because we're not going to be able to get away from any mention of data from here on out.
100%.
Yeah, great conversation with Matt Ryan. I learned a lot from it and just what a great guy, too.
Yeah, he seems like a sweetheart.
Yeah, I really enjoyed him. We'll have to have him back. But yeah, I am now, Matthew Ryan, thank you. I am now a geek on data analytics and I want to learn more. So thank you for that.
Well, Nadine, Happy New Year. That's
Thank
all
you,
the time we
Ryan.
have today. Thank you again, Matt Rand, Managing Director of Research Analytics at Link Logistics, Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you have any questions that you want us to cover on air, you can email us at info@creunplugged.com. See you next time. And until then, keep your convos real and unplugged.